The state of Colorado wants to pass a for-cause eviction law that would make it so that tenants could stay as long as they wanted to after the expiration of their lease. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and once again, it's coming out of the state of Colorado. Now, I've mentioned before that Colorado seems to think that it is a coastal city when it comes to some of the laws and rules and regulations they're passing that are so anti-landlord and anti-property rights. So one of the proposals that they're talking about right now is for-cause eviction protections for tenants, right? Or in some places, they call this just cause or good cause eviction protections, okay? And what those laws do is they make it so that a landlord basically can only remove a tenant from the property for a very small specified number of reasons, right? So at the end of a lease term, let's say that your lease is only 12 months, right? The tenant can stay as long as they want. Doesn't matter if your lease is only for 12 months because the tenant now has the right to stay forever if they so choose. And what they like to do with a lot of these laws is tie like rent control and other ridiculous things into them. And, you know, I hate the idea of this because, you know what, when you sign a contract and it says, okay, you have a right to stay here for 12 months, then at the end of the 12 months, it should be up to, you know, the landlord to decide whether they want to continue this person's tenancy or whether they want to terminate it, okay? Now, in most cases, landlords, they want tenants to stay as long as possible, but there's a lot of situations where a landlord needs their property back. And those situations might not be covered by this ridiculous law. So yeah, this is a bad deal. This is a very bad deal. The places where this sort of thing has passed have ended up being places where landlords literally have to pay tenants tens of thousands of dollars to leave just so they can get their properties back. And that's not the kind of thing we want to see anywhere. So yeah, we'll see if this sort of law will pass in Colorado, but I'm guessing that there's a good chance that it will. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. So for the landlords on here who are already under the good cause or just cause or for cause eviction laws, right? Do you think this is a good law or do you think it's a bad law? For the landlords not under it, right? What are the problems that you could see with such a law? Do you think this would really affect your business in any sort of way? Obviously, I believe the landlord should have the ability to do what they want with their property, okay, within reason. And I believe that we should be able to write our lease contracts in a way that enables us to do as we please with our property. So, you know, like if I want to, you know, buy a home, let's say I wanted to buy a home in Colorado, and I retire, you know, I can retire in my job. I'm eligible to retire from my job in 6 years, right? And I'm like, I want to move up into the mountains in Colorado 6 years from now, but I'm going to buy a house right now because, you know, I can afford it. So I buy a house and I'm like, oh, I'll rent it out for the next 6 years. So after the end of the 6 years, I'm like, well, I want to move into my house now and, or not move into it, but I want to turn it into a vacation rental. And then I can, you know, go and live there from, you know, during the ski season, okay? We'll just say it's ski time and I want to go up there and live for a few months, right? And, but still maintain my home here in Nebraska as my primary residence. So I'm not moving there full time. Well, you can't do that. No, this tenant has the right to stay for the rest of eternity if they so choose. So you can't move, you know, use your own house even temporarily, you know, like what? Right? No, like, oh, this doesn't fall under our for-cause eviction protection, so you have to just remain as this person's landlord forever. See, you see what I mean? Like, there's weird little situations that might pop up, and you know, I don't know if every little thing that I say, you know, every little reason why a landlord might want to remove a tenant from the property is going to be covered by the law. And I know it's not going to because we've already read the stories about what happens in places like California where these laws have already passed. So anyway, let's get into the article and see what it says. This article is coming from CPR News and it says Colorado renters could stay after lease expiration under for-cause eviction proposal. Let's get into it. A law proposed by Colorado Democrats would make it harder for landlords to evict renters in some situations, including when the lease has expired. Under the for-cause eviction proposal, tenants could continue to rent a property as long as they're paying on time and staying in compliance with other rules in their lease. Landlords would no longer have the power to cancel month-to-month leases at their discretion. Landlords should have a reason if they're going to not renew that tenant. Renters deserve a sense of stability, said Representative Javier Mabry, one of the Democratic lawmakers sponsoring the bill, which was officially introduced Wednesday afternoon. So, yeah, they're like, well, the renters, they deserve a sense of stability. Well, no. Like the whole thing about renting is that that eventually you're going to have to move, okay? That there is no permanent housing situation when you are renting someone else's house, okay? That is an unfortunate effect of being a renter. I knew this when I was a renter. I knew that, hey, my lease term is 1 year, and getting close to when the second year comes up, the landlord would ask me if I wanted to renew for another 12 months. And I knew there was a possibility that at the end of the 12 months, the landlord might not want to do that. I also knew there was a possibility for the next year, my rent could go up. You know these things as a renter. You know it, but you don't like it. It's like, well, yeah, that's why I suggest everybody to, get your credit in order, get your money right, and then go and purchase a home. Okay. And everybody, oh, well, I can't afford a home. Homes are so expensive here in Colorado. It's like, I never said you had to buy a house in Colorado. Like Colorado's not the only place where they sell houses, but understand what I'm saying. I'm basically saying that the people who say that their housing is too expensive, in order to buy a house, well, those are the people living in very expensive areas, and nobody's forcing you to stay in the most expensive area. Like if you say, oh, well, I could never afford a place here in Manhattan. Well, yeah, you're in freaking Manhattan. You're not going to be able to afford to buy a place unless you're extremely wealthy. But there are places within the metropolitan area that even, regular middle class people can afford. It might be in New Jersey somewhere, but, that doesn't mean that, you get to live exactly where you want to live. That's just the way life works, we have to go where we can afford. That's part of the reason I'm in Nebraska right now and not in a place that I'd love to live like Miami, okay? Miami's expensive as heck and I can't afford it. So I get to live a very nice middle-class life here in the state of Nebraska, and I'm happy with that, okay? And I get to visit Miami every once in a while. I just don't get to live there. So, yeah, it is what it is, right? And I think the problem is a lot of people are unwilling to accept the fact that, hey, I can't afford to live where I want to live. So they think that the solution is to force landlords to subsidize their living or force the government to subsidize their living. And that's not the solution. That's a failing solution, okay? Where, eventually you actually drive the landlords out of business by doing that sort of thing. But anyway, let me continue. In short, landlords could not forcibly move out one tenant simply because they want to move in a different renter. We believe that the least we could ask is that we afford this small modicum of stability to renters, said Mabry, who also works as an attorney for renters facing eviction. Ooh, what a surprise. One of the people who wrote the bill is a lawyer for tenants facing eviction. What a surprise. I'm not surprised at all. What a complete joke. Anyway, they're like, oh, we don't believe that the landlord should be able to force one tenant out in order to move a different tenant in. Well, why not? That's the whole business, It's like saying, well, we don't believe that, airplanes should be able to charge higher prices for seats, to people who could afford to pay, like people who can afford to pay more are going to have more options. So why should we be forced to charge or to keep tenants in our properties who aren't going to be able to pay us as much as we want to get paid? Okay. Just all of this is ridiculous. All of this is ridiculous. I'm frustrated at these laws because they take away landlords' property rights, our ability to choose to do what we want to do with our properties, and they give that right to the tenant, or they give it to the government itself. And I just think that's wrong and unconstitutional.